I want to find peace.
Yeah.
Peace of mind, not being in this restless state of, okay, there's this and this and that, what I want to achieve today.
The real power of this saboteur is in its ability to stay hidden, because then it's just automatically driving you. But if you start to uncover it, bring it to the surface, it loses some of its power. Would you like to take this assessment that I know of that can be quite useful for identifying patterns of thinking? We'd have that shared language, you see, throughout the whole program that we could keep calling on if it crops up in different sessions.
How many of the clients going through your career change program do use that particular tool?
I'll make it as a coach, light the spark inside, empower every soul to turn the tide. I'll make it as a coach, help others grow, changing lives with every story I know.
Lucy Higgins is a career coach and coach trainer who you already met on the last 2 episodes of The Making of a Coach. On our last week's sessions with Lucy, we unpacked her career change program where she helps ambitious mothers to redefine their career. This is a directive coaching program which allows Lucy to make very concrete promises to her clients. And one of these promises is to resolve blockers like unhelpful beliefs. For this kind of work, she's using the Saboteur assessment. This is a super lightweight and also free coaching tool by Positive Intelligence. And on today's episode, we will close our small season with Lucy with exactly this Saboteurs assessment. We've actually run a small demo coaching where Lucy is coaching me in my role as a business leader and soon-to-be father, struggling with restlessness in both of these roles. So after a little bit of context, we'll hop right into that. So hear for yourself, let's go. How does the career change program look like and what kind of transformation does it bring for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a directive offering that I have. So that means that it's a program that we're going through with different exercises and assessments and parts to it. And it's kind of tried and tested. It's for people who have no idea what career they want to do next. And by the end of the program, they're crystal clear on what it is, and they've got an action plan to achieve that. So it tends to be around 12 to 14 sessions, like hour-long sessions. And it tends to take about 6 months to a year to complete. And it's in 3 different phases called Explore, Dream, Discover. Explore is where we do a big deep dive into who you are as a person. So we're looking at things like your strengths, your life purpose, your values, your skills, your ideal working day, what you're interested in, your passions, etc. And once we've got a super clear idea about who you are, we can then move on to thinking about, well, what careers match that identity? Okay, so then we're looking at basically the start of this program, you'll start what's called an ideas bank. So I'll get you to think about over 35 to 40 ideas. And then in the second phase, Dream, we open up that ideas bank and we go, right, which of these are possible? And then we drill down and we choose the top possibilities. And then the one possibility we draft a vision for, okay? And then we clarify that vision. So this is where you want to be in the future. And then we go back and we look at your reality. So this is the discover part. We look at what's the reality right now. And then we create a bridge between the reality and the vision. And that becomes your action plan. And then if people want accountability, I can hold their hand to create, to make sure that action plan actually happens. Now, through that process, it's not linear. So it's very rare that somebody would go all the way through that process with no hiccups. And what I mean by hiccups is obstacles. And one of those obstacles is your mindset. So how are you getting in the way of A, being creative about your career, and B, not being able to affect change, not being able to actually do the thing? So you and I, Toby, we're going to talk about one of the mindset tools that I use to help clients to identify what is it that's getting in the way in their mindset. And I help them to kind of overcome that.
Yeah, fascinating. So during the explore phase, I really get to know myself in depth is what I hear. I get to know my strengths. I explore my life purpose. I get to know my core values.
Yeah.
And is it also in that phase that we deal with these obstacles now, or?
They can come up at any point. In my experience, they come up in session 1. So they really do come up early in most people, because there's always that question of, well, why haven't you done already? What's been stopping you? And then you normally get into a conversation around your mindset, because they're always practical. They're often practical obstacles, but more often than not, somebody's getting in their own way.
Yeah, and in your framework, you have sort of this bucket of obstacles. Yeah. And when you notice one, then you say, okay, I see we might have this or that obstacle here. Mm-hmm. And then for some, you use this saboteur assessment that I now have taken for us to get a chance to also meet you a bit as a coach and see a small example, a small glimpse in action.
Yes, lovely. Yeah, exactly. So this is one tool that I might use. I have other mindset tools and things as well. But this was a good one for us to get our teeth into, I think, in a short amount of time.
Yeah. And when would you bring that up? If I was now a client in your program, and we might say I could actually be in your target niche, right? I might soon be going through my patrescence, so the process of becoming a dad and having to redefine my career goals, possibly. How do I combine family and career? And we had our discovery call now. We started into the program and we noticed there's these obstacles. How would that look like for me in practice? So that you say, let's pull out the Saboteurs assessment.
Yeah. So I always send people quite a lengthy questionnaire before we even get going. And that's split into past, present, and future. And there's some quite powerful questions in there. And that often gives me an indication about which of these obstacles might be getting in the way. And if I notice a common theme, like mindset, maybe someone saying they've never had much confidence, or they had a traumatic incident at work, which meant that they left work and it was all a disaster, that would be an indication to me that something like this might work. I also ask about their parenting, like how they were parented, their childhood, what were the common, one question I ask is, what are the common mantras or phrases that you heard in the house as a child? That gives me an indication of it's linked to the saboteur assessment, which you'll see in a minute. Okay. All of that will give me an idea. And so what I will do is bring it up potentially in the first session and say, I noticed this, and then ask some questions about it. And I'll say to them at that point, would you like to take this assessment that I know of that can be quite useful for identifying what, the sort of negative patterns of thinking that might get in the way of our work together, but also might get in the way of your career. And it's up to them. I would never push it on anyone. Never. It's more like, I've got this thing in my toolkit. Would you like to have a look at it? And then we would maybe spend one session looking at it together. And then we'd have that shared language, you see, throughout the whole program that we could keep calling on if it crops up in different sessions.
And how many of the clients going through your career change program do use that particular tool?
I want to say all of them, but it's probably 9 out of 10.
Okay.
A lot. Yeah.
Okay. Going through that part of your client journey has been quite simple. So you had sent me, I think, just the link to the positive intelligence site.
Yeah.
And then I self-signed up myself there. And I went through a really simple questionnaire. So I said, okay, let's get started. And then I was shown 50 statements. Mm-hmm. And I simply said, okay, I strongly disagree, I'm neutral, or I strongly agree. Basically from -2 over 0 to +2. And just one example was I can be too much of a stickler or perfectionist. Or then another one that I answered was others tell me I worry too much. And I guess on that one, if you'd ask me now, I probably clicked 3 or +1, so to say.
Yeah.
So agree.
Okay.
And then I think there were a few more sort of, how do you call them? These questions about my status and my current life situation. Demographic questions.
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for. And okay, I said, yeah, I am self-employed or freelance in this example. And then I was done and I received my results.
Yeah.
And this is how they look like.
Yeah. Excellent. So what the client will get is 9 saboteurs ordered from 0 to 10. So the idea being that if you've got 10s up there, that voice, that negative saboteur voice is quite loud, very loud. But if you've got 4s at the top, they're not so loud. So there is an element of, if somebody, I've never had this, by the way, if somebody had like a 4, I might say, actually, how much of a problem is this? It probably wouldn't, it may not be worth us even looking at it because it doesn't sound like it's that loud or getting in the way. And to be honest, Toby, even with yours with a 6, that's quite low. Like that is quite low. So it may be that when we go into this conversation, you're like, actually, it's not that much of an issue. But we'll see.
Yeah. So I got this ranked list of saboteurs, but then next to the ranking, I also get an absolute score, so to say. And you are saying if it's like only 5 out of 10 or even lower, then it might not be worth exploring.
Might not. I say might not because it's really up to the client whether they think it's worth exploring it, irrespective of the number.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if you have any knowledge about that, like, doesn't the absolute score also depend on my own scale?
Yeah.
If I sort of fill the questionnaire and I probably, if I click very much agree very often, then I will get high scores.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I hope the tool then does sort of a normalization of the results, so that in a way this absolute numbers issue that you're describing is not so much of an issue. Do you know anything about that?
I don't actually, but what the way I see it is, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you as the client looking through the profiles of each of these saboteurs with your scores that you've got and going, right, out of these, which is the loudest? Which is the one that gets in the way? So for me, I know it's the pleaser and the hyperachiever. I know that. So irrespective of what scores come out, if I look through those profiles, I know they're the ones that I recognize the most. That's the important thing. Yeah, I'm not so bothered about the kind of numbers side of it. It's more about the awareness that I'm interested in with the client.
And in my case, we have actually 4 of them sharing the first place with 6 each.
Yeah.
The controller, the hyperachiever, the pleaser, and restless.
Yeah. So,
and we said, okay, let's actually go into one of them, right?
Yes. So which one have you chosen?
Yeah, just a minute ago when we were preparing, I told you the hyperachiever.
Have you changed your mind?
Actually, seeing it now, I might change my mind because I'm quite curious about the restless.
Or the restless.
And
okay.
Just seeing the two, they seem quite related, but to me, it seems like the restless is maybe, it's quite a current issue. It seems like I can very much authentically talk about this right now.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's go into that one then. And to be clear, just for the way, so I did a positive intelligence coach kind of training, right? But I never went and did the accreditation. So what that means is that when I'm using it with clients, I'm not doing the full program. So I'm not going to go into it now, but if anyone's listening and they're thinking, why is she not doing the full program with Tobi? It's because of that. I still use this tool, but I use it in a more light touch way. So I use it for awareness so that we can have the awareness through the program, through the career change program, that you've got this saboteur voice in there that could get in the way at any point. So that's how I use it. Okay.
So similar to how your whole program, your whole career change program is sort of a variant of the fireworks program. What we are going to see here now is also not necessarily the by the book positive intelligence coaching, but it is the Lucy version of how you actually apply this tool in your practice.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Is there anything that you would like to share, ask, say before we dive into this?
So just for context of my situation, I have MetaFox as a business that I co-own and co-lead. And at the same time, I'm about to become a dad pretty much any day these days. And I've chosen the Restless Saboteur profile because that's a state that I would often describe myself in. So there's always many projects going on. There's always many ideas that come and high ambitions combined with these ideas. I see that I tend to work a lot, especially when other people depend on me and other people sort of waiting for me to pass the ball back into their field so they can go on. And with this high amount of multitasking, restlessness is a common theme. That's my context and why I chose this profile now to work on.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so just going to do a little bit of contracting at the start. So are you happy that we talk about this for 20 minutes? Would that be okay?
Sounds great.
Yeah, this is a demonstration, but neither of us know what's going to happen. It's very much kind of live. I want to check like confidentiality. Obviously, this is going to go out into the public. So I just want to check you're happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. And if at any point you want to stop, you can just say, I want to stop. And in terms of the style that I'm going to be using for this, it is going to be a little bit directive because it's not an actual coaching session. This is more about us delving into tool, and I'm going to be asking you questions so that you can gain some self-awareness from this tool, this questionnaire, essentially. So at the start of the conversation, I'm going to ask you, what would success look like for you today with this tool? Like, what is it you're looking to get out of this conversation? And then we'll go into it. Does that sound okay?
Yes. I believe success for me would mean in this upcoming period of becoming a father and wanting to be there with my attention, with my partner, with the baby, and at the same time going through a very exciting time at the business, at MetaFox. I would like to be able to switch off and be present and not be restless, but be able to actually rest with my family and let go of that restlessness.
Yeah. And why is that important to you to achieve, to switch off and be present and rest and let go?
Two things come to mind. Firstly, my actual first thought was because I owe it to Joanna, to my partner, being here for her and for once not prioritizing my work, actually. And at the same time, of course, I also see that this is a super unique experience that we'll only go through once or twice or thrice in a lifetime. And I want to experience it and not be with the next business project in my mind, because there will be many more and there will not be so many more babies in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hearing there's this real desire to be present in the moment with Johanna and the new baby, and a recognition this doesn't come along very often. It's really important to you. And also you owe it to your wife. Yeah. So that you're aware that there's this restless voice that takes you away from that, or might take you away from that presence. Is that right?
Yeah. And just talking about it now, maybe there's a third one, and that is simply also going beyond this upcoming period. I want to find peace.
Yeah.
in a way, peace of mind, not lying down in bed and still thinking what's going on, or waking up in the morning and already being in this restless state of, okay, there's this and this and that, what I want to achieve today.
Yeah.
But also being present with where I am and being at peace
Okay.
for my own sake,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay, lovely. So we know what your intention is and how you'd like to be, but we're also aware that you've got this saboteur voice in your head that we're calling the restless, that is getting in the way or could get in the way of your desire to find peace and be present. Okay. So according to this theory, we have a very dominant voice in our head called the judge. And that is the sort of negative chatter that you might recognize, maybe, that is this kind of constant, they're called sort of negative automatic thoughts. They're just there all the time, a bit like flies in your head. And they might be saying things like, oh, you idiot, you messed up again, just sort of generally chatting away negative stuff. Okay, so that's the judge. And what the judge does is it has 9 accomplice saboteurs that it calls upon in different contexts. And so what this test has shown is that you've got the judge, but the main saboteur that the judge calls on is the restless to help it. And it's interesting because as we're talking, you might be thinking, well, hang on, this isn't serving me. So why is this, like, why is my brain doing this? And the reason is, according to this theory, is that we create this mindset in childhood, and that actually it's a coping mechanism in childhood. It's a way of surviving. So at some point, this theory says that you created neural pathways in your brain in order to get your survival needs met. So things like get love, attention, food, shelter, all that stuff as a child. You created this way of thinking, all right? But then as an adult, you don't need it anymore, but you haven't updated your files yet. You haven't made that connection. You're still in the past. You're still in this sort of negative automatic thinking that's based on the past. So part of our work in coaching is to identify that. What is this old pattern of thinking that doesn't actually serve you now? Because it's not going to get you peace or connection to your family or presence, right? It's not going to achieve that, is it? So we want to get curious now about why you've internalized that and how it shows up for you. Because the real power of this saboteur is in its ability to stay hidden, because then it's just automatically driving you. But if you start to uncover it, bring it to the surface, it loses some of its power, and you can start to manage it and control it. Okay, so one of the things that we need to think about is actually this thing here thinks it's doing you a favor. It's still stuck in the past. It thinks it's helping you in some way. So you want to have empathy for it. You want to go, well, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you, but I don't need you anymore. So that's one of the kind of techniques that we'll be talking about. How is this all landing with you as I'm sharing the sort of theory behind it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's familiar from the therapy I did and mindfulness practice in a way. I came to that conclusion that sort of, in the end, many of these things that we carry around with ourselves are about self-compassion and acknowledging that there is this pattern or this saboteur that has a purpose and there's a positive intention that it has. And in order to overcome it, the goal is not in cutting it out or rejecting it, but in hugging it and appreciating it, and through that sort of diluting or dissolving it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if we try and push it down, ignore it, keep it hidden, it'll actually get bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. And with regards to even the restlessness specifically, I can also see the benefits.
Okay.
Like, this is also what has been driving me here. And yeah, why why does anyone need to start a podcast on top of all the other things, And I mean, sometimes it's stressful and I feel restless, but I also appreciate the life that I build, and I enjoy all these different projects that I'm juggling. So it's also not so difficult for me to appreciate this saboteur.
Yeah. So what does it bring you then? This restless?
It drives me. It motivates me.
Okay. It drives you. But then if you look at the characteristics, it says easily distracted and can get too scattered, stays busy, juggling many different tasks, seeks excitement and variety rather than comfort or safety, escapes from unpleasant feelings very quickly, seeks constant new stimulation. So that's quite interesting because those characteristics, how do you feel about that versus what you just said, that it drives you?
Yeah, of course, if I see this easily distracted and scatteredness, if I hear being easily distracted and scattered, it doesn't sound pleasant, it doesn't sound attractive, it doesn't sound like something that I want. But seeking excitement and variety rather than comfort or safety, I would say yes.
Yeah.
That's to some extent the life I want to have, actually.
Okay.
So that part of it and seeking new stimulation is also something that I enjoy.
Yeah. But at what cost?
Restlessness, literally not being able to rest.
Yeah. So it's
and feeling drained and overwhelmed oftentimes.
Yeah. So the word balance is coming up here to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That maybe the balance is a bit off. That you're spending too much time in the zone of excitement and juggling and busyness and stimulation, and actually the rest is suffering. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think balance for me doesn't necessarily mean to get rid of the excitement and the variety, but it means to be able to let go of the excitement and the variety and sort of switch it off.
Okay.
During some parts of life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being able to let it go, I think that is what would be attractive.
Yeah. So we're saying that it does serve you, but what would really benefit with you is the ability to switch off when you need to. Okay. So what's stopping you from switching it off right now?
The belief that I need to do this and that before XYZ, or because person ABC is waiting.
Okay. So if we go into the thoughts, because you mentioned the belief that, have a look at those thoughts and see which ones of those resonate. And
so the options I can see here are: this isn't fulfilling. This next thing gotta be more exciting. These negative feelings suck. I must shift my attention to something exciting. Why can't anyone keep up with me? I'd say the most attractive here is the next thing. Gotta be more exciting. Gotta be more fruitful, maybe in a business context. And just because I see it here also, like, I can already read some of the feelings that are connected. And what really pulls me is this impatience of what's happening now, impatience with what's happening now, and also, this wondering what's next. So it's sort of a combination of this impatience to get done with this one thing, so I can see how will it evolve, what's next, we can also do this. That's sort of the thought patterns that come up.
Yeah. Okay. So there's something here that for me that I'm thinking about, which is I wonder if the restless and the hyperachiever saboteur, in your case, work quite closely together, because it sounds like the hyperachiever is probably saying, come on, we need to achieve, we need to do more, we need to do better, we need to keep moving. And the restless is saying, yes, we need to keep going with this. Don't stop. How does that resonate with you?
I haven't actually looked at the hyperachiever today, only a few weeks ago when I did that.
Yeah.
But just from what it implies with its name, definitely, this is very much intertwined.
Yeah. So, and again, the hyperachiever is great because it actually helps you. It drives you, right? It drives you. But it's still that same issue you talked about, being able to switch it off. It's like, actually, sometimes it's not appropriate when you've got the new baby and you want to be there with the baby and you don't want to be thinking about work. How are you going to switch it off? Are you going to switch off that saboteur? What's coming up for you when I say that?
Yeah, quite a few things already. Yeah, I was just wondering, where is it working already, this switching off?
Yeah, good idea.
And
Yes.
when I'm thinking about it, it's oftentimes, I'm thinking back a few weekends ago, we had this like get together of a group of friends at a random house in the German countryside. And just arriving at that house and being in this environment of, okay, we are chilling together in the garden, like a bunch of friends who haven't met in a while. We might actually still be talking about all the exciting projects that are going on in our lives, but immediately I am in this state of letting go of my own stuff and can really lean into, okay, what's going on with you? And I can be present without any issues, just because there's these other people that sort of pull my attention and it feels meaningful.
Yeah. Okay. So you've potentially touched on something quite resourceful there. That's what I'm hearing. It's sort of a way of switching off by getting curious about others. So focusing your attention on others while still, it feels like you're still moving forward. You're not kind of stagnant. So that would maybe appease your hyperachiever because you're still learning. You're still curious about others, right? It's a little bit slower. That's the sense I'm getting. It's not so restless. It's a bit slower and more present.
Yeah. It actually has this element of, I can rest here because I'm with you, or because I'm involved in something meaningful, in a meaningful relationship.
Okay. So that word meaningful, you mentioned a few times. Yeah. So what does that mean to you when I say that I've noticed that word coming up?
Yeah, I think that is also in this, like, when being driven, like, oh, let me work on the next project, let me start the next project. I'm also doing because I find it meaningful, or I believe it will be meaningful. And I think relationships, friendships, possibly also family, are this place where I also have this meaning. So I don't need to strive for it in the next project that is giving me this sense of restlessness.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to stop there because we've come to the end of this session. I'd just love to get your thoughts on what you took from this very short conversation. What have you taken from the conversation?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's a small discovery, but maybe it's not small. Like knowing that maybe I have these two scales of, does this give me meaning? And then the other scale is, does this give me a sense of rest? Or does this allow me to rest my mind? And I think it could be interesting to sort of look at different activities in regards to these two scales. And one thing I think is this, okay, spending time with friends, relationship time in a way. And I guess I can explore more, where else do I get this? Like, is it sports, meditations, or meditative practices of certain types, and etc. So I could go on, but I think my takeaway is having these two scales of meaning and energy in a way that I can use to assess paths towards rest, towards peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's leave it there because I don't want to take up too much time, but I feel like we could go in lots of different threads we could pull, to carry on the coaching conversation. But I'm glad that you got something out of it, something very small, but maybe poignant, something to think about.
Yeah, thank you. Stepping out of the coaching now, I'd love to still ask you one or two questions.
Okay.
To what extent was this now representative of a typical journey that you would go through as part of the career change program journey? What would be different in reality?
In reality, we would normally go more into the where has this come from? So the original survival function that was at the bottom of the profile. I think because we only had 20 minutes, I thought it would be more useful for you to just keep it to kind of what your experience of the saboteur was and try and get you some value out of that. I often will start talking about that profile, but very much go into a coaching conversation and maybe come back to it later. We don't kind of go through the profile, which is kind of what we did. We sort of went through it a bit, didn't we? I would more kind of intuitively pull on threads that I'm using and go down that route. So, for instance, you mentioned the words curiosity. I wrote down the words meaningful, curiosity, patience, momentum. So that's what I was getting from you, that you wanted, that these were like positive words or phrases that were coming out for me that felt resourceful, that I might have pulled on and gone, what does that mean for you? What would that look like to be more curious? And what's that relationship? What's the relationship between being curious and resting? And I also probably would have gone more into the vision of like what it is that you actually want to create, what life you want to create once your baby is born, and how maybe habits and things that you can start to create to manage that restless saboteur. So taking it more into the kind of practical of, how are you going to change as a result of this awareness? I would normally spend about an hour on it. So you do go quite deep, I suppose. And then as I mentioned earlier, you kind of, because you then have a shared language, and then in the future sessions, you can sort of say, oh, what does the restless think of that? Or I'm noticing a bit of restless language there, so you can sort of carry that thread just through the conversation so that we ensure it doesn't get in the way.
Yep. So the tool is a conversation prompt that enables you to then have a non-directive coaching session.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it gives you a shared language that you can use over time in future sessions.
Yeah. The language that positive intelligence theorists use is saboteurs and sage. Okay, so they have this kind of sage voice, or I think it's called the sage strengths or powers, sage powers. I don't use that. I use saboteur voice, healthy voice. And with my clients, we will build up a sense of what this healthy voice is. And it's rooted in your core values, your strengths, your vision, your skills, all the kind of positive attributes about the self. And we build up that voice so that it can counteract the saboteur voice. So that would be like the next step that I would do with you.
And for these kinds of frameworks that you then bring in, you could use other small tools, actually.
Yeah, so a couple of other theories that I use are transactional analysis. So do you know about the parent, the adult, and the child ego states? Yeah, so the healthy voice would have the adult within it. So what does the adult state feel like, think like, look like, etc.? And that would be in the healthy bit. And I also use polyvagal theory, which is a physiological theory that enables you to identify which part of your nervous system that you're in any one time. So again, ventral vagal is the state that is the rest state. You would be like in a kind of creative, mobilized, but fairly rested state. That would be in healthy voice. Whereas the sympathetic, the kind of mobilized, hyper, that would be in your saboteur side of your voice. So yeah,
so it brings it on a nervous system level, actually.
Physiological, yeah. And we could, and again, depending on whether the client resonates with that or not, some people don't feel things in their body. They don't notice their body, and they don't really want to talk about it. Whereas other people are absolutely fascinated by it, because we now know that 80% of the messages that reach the brain come from our body. They don't come from our brain. We used to think it came from our brain. It doesn't. It comes from our body. So if we want to change something, we need to look at what's going on in our body.
Awesome. How did you discover the Saboteur survey, and how was your journey in adopting it into your program?
So I got to be part of a Saboteur assessment pod with some other coaches that were trying it out as a tool. So I joined the pod and I learned how to use it. And then through that, I read the book and I listened to all the podcasts and everything you're meant to do. I decided, actually, I don't want to do the qualification in it. I didn't it didn't feel right at the time, but I do want to take the ideas from it because I think it's really useful for clients to have a name for this voice that it really does help clients to articulate what's going on for them by having these names. And it sort of distances themselves, like emotionally distances them from it, from their mindset. And then how does I bring it in? I just see it as a really quick and easy, get to know you type tool. It's really useful. I just think it's really useful for people. And it's rooted in psychology, it's rooted in research evidence. But it's very simple to understand, I think.
Yeah, that resonates also for me from a client perspective. It felt very lightweight.
Yes.
Quite different actually from, like, I've also done a bunch of bigger assessments like the DISC, the link, which is sort of more, and they feel much more worky.
Yeah.
like it feels like, and this one was very easygoing and yet quite useful, quite insightful to have that language to talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm DISC accredited. I can do it. I just never use it. And that might be one of the reasons. I just think it's a little bit, it's not very lighthearted, is it? It's quite heavy. This is actually quite heavy in the sense that it's rooted in quite deep psychology, but it feels light. So
awesome. Cool.
Okay.
I also take away a nice example for how our strengths discovery at MetaFox could evolve.
Okay.
Because I think there we might also aim for that sweet spot of being grounded in science, but still feeling lightweight and mainly fulfilling this purpose of giving a language a prompt.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And if you think about how the brain works, like when we're in a stress response and we're having to really think about something, we're not as creative, we're not as open-minded, we're not as curious. Whereas if we're looking at something that's quite, easy to understand and lighthearted, we're in a much more productive, creative headspace, which is what we want in coaching. Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
Okay.
After this long journey of diving into 3 different areas of your work, is there any question I should have still asked you?
I don't think so. But I'm sure you're very sick of my face and my voice. My voice is starting to stumble because I'm so tired now. So no more questions. Thank you, Tobi.
Okay. Is there any question you would like to leave for the next guest that's coming on here?
What do you wish you could change about the coaching industry?
Thanks so much.
No worries. Thank you.
This is where we finally conclude our 3 episodes long series with Lucy. I really learned a lot from Lucy and loved how we were able to look into all these different roles that she's having, from coach trainer to successful career coach and finally user of the Saboteurs assessment today. If you are curious to use the tool, it is entirely for free and there's only the simple client app that you've seen. So you simply send your client to positiveintelligence.com/saboteur, or of course, go there yourself first in case you want to try it out first. For me, the assessment was not only super useful in my role as a client of Lucy today, but also in my role as a coaching tools developer. As already mentioned on the episode, I found it quite a nice inspiration for our own strengths discovery tool, a similarly simple tool with, of course, a different focus on strengths, not on limiting beliefs. And you can find that one on strengths-discovery.com. That's it for the Making of a Coach today. If you enjoyed this episode, like, rate, subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts, or share this with a friend. I'm Tobi from MetaFox. I say thanks for listening, all the best, and see you back here in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.